Mayor Moss is here, and Councilmember Young is here.
If everyone would rise, we'll have a moment of silence, and then Councilman Runenbaum will lead us in the pledge. Would you bow with me, please? Thank you. Councilman Runenbaum.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Alicia, did we not have any public comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. Item number A is approve City Council meeting minutes from July the 28th, 2020 meeting. Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes from July 28th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Thank you. Regular agenda items. Discussion only. Mr. Weber will do a presentation on the quarterly financial reports. Jake, you're up.
Good evening. So this is going to be looking at the third fiscal quarter of the year, so we're almost through, and this gives us a pretty good feel for where we're at during the year, and I think we can kind of project where the year is going to end up at. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll highlight a few things to give a lot more explanation on it, and then we'll kind of walk through it. So just looking at that first page, you can kind of see at a high level where we're at in each fund. Really, we're in pretty good shape. If you look as we'll go through budget to actual, we're really trending pretty well on both our revenue side and the expense side. Nothing too out of the ordinary this year. The one thing I want to point out on just the capital projects that you have going on, the Fort Worth water line, you see the costs there. I just kind of give you an idea of what those are, the 890. 502 of that is debt issuance costs, so that was just lumped in when the debt was issued. The 250,000 was the little bit of land or house acquisition several months ago, and then 138,000 engineering. So just kind of give you a feel for where that cost had been on that so far. And then you can see the building and the road; those are basically done, but just where those ended up at in terms of the extra cash or spending on those items. So just an overview there. So if you look at the general fund, going into the detail, a couple things I just want to point out on that. So this is going to be on page 2. You can see M&O tax, 102%. So we're in great shape there, $25,000 over with a couple months. So you think we're not going to have any big months these last few months, but still continue to go a little overage on that. And so that's obviously a good thing. And then the big thing I know that we had been tracking since all the COVID hit is where's our sales tax going to end up at? And you can see, obviously, we are exceeding budget right now. And so I think we're probably on pace for about 1.2, depending on how these last couple months end up at. But I certainly think, unless something unusual happens, we'll definitely hit budget, which is, pretty impressive considering when we talked last quarter, or even the quarter before, we didn't know. We were thinking maybe 200,000 to 300,000 under at least. And so the fact that we've seen such good sales tax come in, that's been a promising sign. So you can see your revenue on your taxes is good. On the franchise fees, if a couple of those at the bottom, the water and the wastewater franchise fees, those are inter funds. So when I move those over, you're going to be at 96% of budget on that. So I would anticipate you're going to come very close to 100% there. We've talked about your development fees, how you're 228% so far. The only item right now that's down for the year, and like I said, I don't see how this would be made up, is just your fines and forfeitures on the court revenue there. So that's the only thing that's low. But otherwise, all your other revenue items are really right where you want to be at, or even more than we had budgeted. On the expense side, if you look at the categories, you can see we're all trending right where we need to be. Personnel, you're at 73% of budget. A lot of these were under. There's a few line items that you're over on a particular line item, but there, I kind of looked into a few of those. There wasn't anything that was out of the ordinary. If you have any questions on an individual line item, let me know. If you're curious on some expenses there. The one thing I was going to point out, just under the capital outlay on page 5, you can see we're over on that. And I think we may hit on this last quarter, but the capital projects is that tornado siren, and then there's some software in there and technology, and that's some new servers and some stuff for Encode moving over for that. So those are some of your costs there. I think, I know we've talked about this in the past, and just, you think about, this is as of June 30th. So you think you have July, August, September, we're plus 330 through June. My guess is you'll probably come close to breaking even, if you really think about it. Because usually we run a deficit in the last 3 months because you have your high months, when your property taxes are coming in. So I don't think you'll have to do any type of transfer or anything like that. Obviously, that's something we'll monitor. Okay, cash-wise, where are we at in the general fund in that operating account? But like I said, I would think we'll come close to breaking even on that unless something unexpected happens, which is, we actually budgeted the transfer in, so we shouldn't have to do that, hopefully. On the water side, looking at revenue, the one thing I point out, your user charges are up 192,000 over last year. Last year, a little lower year. Based on historic months in the summer, we should come really close to hitting budget, just looking at what the summer months usually do. You can kind of see we're at 70% so far, and just tracking, usually what we do July, August, September, we should come really close on that. The personnel, the only thing I'll put on that, as you know, we shifted some salaries into that, which is why if you look year over year, you're a little bit higher, but you're still within your, where you want to be on your budget. You do see, so we are down a little, you see we're at a small deficit on water. That I think will go the other way, where you'll end up with a profit for the year. A lot of that was just timing. A lot of the capital projects that we had done out of that 1.5 million, that project fund, some of the costs got pushed into this fiscal year, and then you had some debt issuance costs, some of the expense hit that. But otherwise, you take that out, and you're still in a really strong position on your water in terms of your cash flow on that. Wastewater, very straightforward in terms of your revenue. You're right on budget on that. The main thing I'd point out on this, there's really not, you're managing your expenses very well. There's really not anything over on the expense side. Your revenue's right on. The one thing just to be aware of, obviously I know this has been discussion point, is your debt service payments. You can see, this year we've paid 37,333. The total this year is going to be about 75. Next year it goes to 267 for the fiscal year. So you have that built in. So when you're thinking about your budgeting and your planning on that.
It's actually 268.
Is it 268? Okay. Yeah, so that's already committed under the current debt service that you have. And so we've had it lower these last couple of years, but that's about the jump. And then just looking at the cash balances, just a couple of things I'll point out. You can see our operating cash, we're at 491, so that's where I talk about, we'll just kind of keep an eye on that to make sure, do we have enough in the general operating, if we need to pull some reserves or savings, just we'll monitor that. And then that Techstar water capital improvements, that's the account that we've been transferring money out to do some of the water improvements, and you can see that's been totally spent. So you committed a couple of years ago to spend that money, and that has been as of the most recent quarter. Any questions on anything? I know we went through that fairly quickly, but there wasn't too much that really jumped out in terms of anomalies or unexpected items that we had so far.
Any questions for Jake? Thank you, Jake.
Thanks.
Item number 2, discuss and take action. Consider and act on City Hall Committee recommendations. Mr. Grimes?
At the last meeting, there was a motion made by Greg and Eric to establish a City Hall Committee to visit sites, have discussions with neighboring communities and other interested parties. And so,
Brian,
no.
I think you're on 3 and we're on 2.
Yep.
City Hall Committee.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Mayor to Brian, Mayor to Brian.
My apologies. Let me start. City Hall Committee met last week, and throughout our discussions, there was always the need to have architectural assistance, not necessarily to do drawings or anything of that nature. There's been a lot of discussions, and I'm glad to see Steve's here representing the City Hall Committee as well. But smile. There's always been a need of how much square feet do you need? How big is an office? What is this going to look like? What are some of the other things? ADA compliance. So every time that we had an idea, we would take something to Pat and say, how do we take this idea and make it work? Pat's first response is, you're going to need an architect. So at some point, you're going to have to retain the services of one. We would like, the City Hall Committee would like council to approve the RFP, I guess it'd be an RFQ, for professional services to help in the process of the City Hall. I have no idea what the cost is. Some of it may be by the hour. I think we'll just let we can't ask for price in an RFQ anyway. So, but that is the recommendation of the City Hall
So
Committee.
we're just starting the initial
Yes,
task of looking at a city hall.
yes, yeah, yeah. We don't even know the size of a building.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we would be doing is advertising the RFQ, and we would receive those responses, and council would
Yes.
act on the selection.
Yes.
And at that point, is there some sort of not to exceed
Yes.
or general idea of what
Yes.
we expect the architect?
Yes.
Okay.
We would take that, whatever firm was selected, we would bring that back to council for adoption.
Okay.
And so,
And we didn't discuss this as part of the budget?
it's not part of the budget.
Okay, but we'd be discussing it when we review the RFQs? where
Yes.
We would find that funding?
Yes.
Okay,
I didn't know what to expect for services.
okay.
Considering that we are a number of months away from actually constructing anything, this is more of I would envision the RFQ to be more of an advisory role, rather than blueprints, condocs, things of that nature. We need some assistance, technical assistance, I guess is the best way to put it, to have someone in the room to say, you know, your city hall needs to be this big, or your council chamber should be this big.
Would you expect that we'd be getting some sort of overall cost estimate for construction of a city hall from the architect? Some sort
Yes.
of level of, this is what you need to plan for? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And we'd also ask them to meet with different departments
Okay.
on what they need.
See the
So,
expectations of?
yes, expectations of each department, the staff, and the chambers and everything. That's what their job would primarily do.
Okay.
Be.
I mean, I think I'm the one person here that's not on the committee, so. So I'm the one with the questions, I guess, because I
No.
haven't been to the.
I mean, this is very, very preliminary.
Right.
I mean, every discussion has turned back to, well, we need some expertise on that issue. And that's why we're like, oh, we need to hire an architect.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions or
Need a motion?
need a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize city staff to issue an RFQ for architectural services for the city hall.
Second?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Brian, we're on number 3 now. Consider an act on the appointment of a wastewater treatment committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for the other one. So at the end of the discussion last week, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me, on wastewater treatment, I think Eric and Greg had made a motion in a second, maybe in a different order, to basically engage and work with potential partners, other cities, groups interested in development of treatment solutions. Mayor Moss has indicated to staff that he's nominating Eric Contreras and Leah Young, I'm assuming that's still correct? To serve on that committee along with staff and the mayor.
So we have a recommendation, myself, Brian, Eric, and Leah, to serve on the wastewater treatment committee. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we form a committee with Mayor Moss, Brian Grimes, Eric Contreras, and Leah Young.
Second it.
Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 4, to consider and act on items to be considered for future council meetings.
The 25th, with the new information that we got on the budget, I would expect us to have a budget hearing at 6:30. As of right now, I don't have any agenda items that are pressing. I'm trying to rack my brain to see if we had anything that was coming up.
So we'll have a hearing on the 25th.
We'll have a hearing on the 25th.
Hearing on the 25th, we should have the bids back on the parks.
I was going to,
So we should have some level of discussion for
Yeah.
those.
If
I'm
we
not-
have that, it'll be on there.
yeah,
We'll-
I'm not prepared to cancel the 25th yet.
Okay,
I don't know what we have as far as those proposals go.
If we have a public hearing and we have some on parks, we'll have it.
right, I
Yeah.
was going to say, if we're here anyway.
We're opening it on the 25th.
Okay. Right,
You're opening them on the 25th?
yes.
Pretty sure, yes.
Okay? Our next meeting will be the August 25th. Is that correct?
Yes.
For a future council meeting, we had discussed this a while back. I think in January, we did zoning, where we had, so I'm not saying in August or September when we're doing all the budget stuff, but the idea of approaching what we might want to change with our zoning ordinances, if we could kind of revisit that now that,
I'll have Betty, because I
Okay.
know Betty's been working on updating those.
okay, yes.
So,
Give an update October-ish or something, if that works,
Yeah.
or September.
And Nate has, we actually sat down with Nate about
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks ago, and he had some questions on zoning and some suggestions as well.
Okay, perfect.
So we will have the parks, Mr. Parker, on the 25th? Okay. We don't need any action there.
No.
Yep.
Item number 5, to consider an act on setting the date and time for the next meeting. That'll be the 25th of August, is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Do we need a motion? I thought it was automatic.
It's a regular meeting.
Just regular meeting.
Okay,
Regular meeting.
It says action.
regular meeting. Okay, this time at 7:17, we're going into executive session. We need everyone to clear out, please.